They said he was just another face in the crowd. That night, no one knew his name, no one cared where he came from. But before the ceremony ended, before the lights dimmed and the doors closed, everyone in that gym would remember him. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who says nothing at all. The high school gym was alive with noise. Sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, children in crisp uniforms practiced their drills, and parents sat fanning themselves on fold-out chairs, waiting for the belt presentations to begin. Laughter rose when a student stumbled, cheers followed whenever one nailed a perfect move. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday afternoon. And then there was the man by the door. He didn't sit, didn't clap, didn't mingle. He stood in silence, tall and broad-shouldered, his hands folded loosely in front of him. His jacket looked worn, its sleeves frayed at the edges, his boots scuffed with years of use. His face was weathered, carved with quiet lines, and his eyes were pale, sharp, and unyielding. He didn't search the crowd, didn't seem to notice the noise. He simply stood as though he had been rooted there his entire life. At first, no one paid attention. But stillness draws the eye. A girl on the mat whispered to her friend, "Who's that?" A mother adjusted in her seat, pretending not to stare. A little boy tugged on his father's sleeve. "Why won't he sit down?" The father shrugged, but even he kept glancing back. On the mat, Dante Cruz was in his element. 19, tall, built like he had something to prove, every move he made was a performance. He cracked jokes too loud, slammed his training partner onto the mat harder than necessary, and basked in the bursts of laughter from his friends. Dante liked being the center of attention, and the gym was his stage. Until he noticed the man by the door. Dante grinned wider, shouting louder, slamming his partner again, harder, sharper. The crowd chuckled nervously. But when Dante's eyes flicked to the corner, the man hadn't moved. Not once. He just stood, gaze steady, breathing even, as though Dante didn't exist at all. The harder Dante tried, the emptier the laughter felt. Finally, he snapped. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Hey! You, what are you even doing here?" The laughter died instantly. Parents shifted in their chairs, kids froze mid-drill, heads turned in unison. The man lifted his gaze slowly, those pale eyes locking with Dante's. He said nothing. Not a word. But silence can weigh more than a shout. The air grew thick. The students who'd been grinning moments ago looked at the floor. Even Master Chen hesitated before giving the order to resume drills. But nothing truly resumed. Not really. Because the balance in the room had shifted. Dante forced a laugh, shoving his partner again, louder than before, but no one was laughing now. Every sound he made seemed hollow. And when the man finally did speak, his voice was low, steady, almost casual. "Your balance is weak." The words landed heavier than any strike. Dante froze mid-motion. His partner twisted slightly, and for the first time, Dante's grip failed. He stumbled, catching himself before he fell. The parents murmured. The students whispered. Dante's face flushed red. He spun, pointing toward the man. "You think you know better than me? You think you can just stand there and judge?" Still, the man said nothing. His eyes didn't blink, didn't soften, didn't move. The silence pressed harder than Dante's voice ever could. Whispers spread across the benches. One parent leaned close to another and muttered, "That look, I've seen it before. Military. Combat." The words carried farther than he intended, and soon students were stealing glances, their giggles replaced by unease. Dante barked at his partner again, trying to cover his embarrassment. But his movements grew sloppy, each slam more desperate than the last. He stole glances toward the corner, toward the man who still hadn't moved. Not once. The stranger adjusted his sleeve. For a moment, a pale scar caught the light, running from wrist to forearm. Not a mark of accident, but of something colder. Harder. Earned. Dante saw it. And for the first time that night, his laughter died in his throat. The drills ended. Master Chen called for demonstrations, but no one volunteered. The silence grew heavy. Finally, Dante smirked, raising his hand. "I'll show them." He chose his friend Marcus as a partner and strutted to the center. He performed a flashy escape, grinning wide, waiting for applause. It didn't come. Instead, the man's voice cut through the room again. Too much flash. No control. Dante's grin faltered. Marcus twisted, tried the move again, this time Dante's hold collapsed. He stumbled, barely catching himself. The crowd erupted in whispers. Parents leaned forward. Students pointed. Dante turned, jaw tight, fists clenched. "Enough games. If you've got something to prove, old man, then prove it. Step onto the mat." Gasps rippled through the gym. Parents shook their heads, children stared wide-eyed, and still the man didn't move. Until finally, he stepped forward. Boots clicking softly against the floor, his presence seemed to stretch into every corner of the room. The laughter was gone now. All that remained was the hum of the heating vents and the sound of his slow, deliberate steps. He stopped at the edge of the mat, pale eyes fixed on Dante. "One round. No more. When it's done, you'll apologize." The words were not threat. They were promise. The crowd leaned forward, breathless. Dante puffed his chest, forcing a grin. "Fine by me." He bowed theatrically, mocking. The stranger inclined his head slightly, no theatrics, no show. And when he stepped onto the mat, slipping his boots off and planting his feet with calm precision, the entire gym knew. This was no ordinary man. But no one, not Dante, not Master Chen, not the families watching, could have imagined what was about to happen. Because when Elias Kane moved, it would change everything. The weeks after that night were uneasy. The gym wasn't the same. Where once there had been cocky laughter and careless bravado, now there was silence before every spar, a heaviness that no one could shake. Elias's name lingered, not as a curse but as a ghost that haunted the edges of every fight. And yet, he didn't return. No phone calls, no explanations, nothing. It was as if the man had vanished into smoke, leaving only the faint echo of his presence. But one man couldn't stop thinking about him. Marcus Reed, the sharpest prospect in the gym, had been away that night. He hadn't seen Elias dismantle his teammates, hadn't witnessed the war that lived in his eyes. All Marcus had were whispers, half-believed stories of a man no one could truly describe. And Marcus didn't buy it. "No one like that just walks in and disappears," he muttered to his coach. "If he exists, I'll find him." His search started small, late-night questions in nearby bars, half-spoken inquiries to veterans who still carried dog tags under their shirts. Most brushed him off. A few gave him looks so sharp he stopped asking. Until one night, he found himself in a dimly lit bar at the edge of town, staring at a man who didn't flinch at Elias's name. The man was old, scarred, his left hand trembling slightly as he lifted his glass. "You're chasing a ghost, kid," the man said without looking at him. "And ghosts don't like being chased." But the warning only fueled Marcus more. He pushed harder, driven not by arrogance like Dante before him, but by obsession. He wanted to see what the others had seen. He wanted proof. And in that obsession, he left a trail. What Marcus didn't know was that Elias had been watching. From shadows, from rooftops, from the spaces no one ever thinks to look. He hadn't vanished. He was waiting. Testing. Measuring whether the world had truly forgotten him, or if his past would drag him back. Then came the night the gym doors opened again. Marcus stood in the ring, gloves on, sweat rolling down his back. He had spread the word, loud and reckless, if the legend is real, he'll show up. And if he does, I'll be the one to break him. The room buzzed with nervous energy, whispers too low to ignore. No one expected him to come. No one believed he'd walk back through that door. But then, he did. Quiet, calm, eyes as unreadable as the night he first appeared. The room froze. Marcus smirked. So it's true. Good. Now we end the myth. But Elias didn't move. He stood there, still as stone, his silence louder than any challenge. And when he finally did speak, the words cut the room in half. You don't want this fight. Not with me. Not tonight. Marcus laughed, stepping forward. I've been waiting for this. The bell rang. And in that instant, every man and woman in the room realized history wasn't repeating, it was escalating. Elias wasn't here to teach this time. He was here because something in him had shifted. The fight wasn't about pride anymore. It was about survival. Blow after blow cracked through the silence, Marcus faster than anyone had seen him, Elias absorbing, deflecting, countering with precision that made the room's skin crawl. But halfway through the round, Marcus caught him, a sharp strike across the temple that staggered the legend. Gasps erupted. For the first time, Elias looked vulnerable. The fight grew violent, desperate, more war than sport. And then, with the whole gym pressed against the ropes, Elias stopped. He looked at Marcus with a gaze so heavy it silenced the entire room. His lips parted as if to speak, but then the gym's doors burst open. 3 men walked in. Not fighters. Not trainers. Men in dark coats with faces carved from stone, their eyes scanning, their movements too precise to be ordinary. One of them carried a black case. Elias froze, his entire body tensing, his fists lowering. And in that pause, every soul in the room understood, these men weren't here for Marcus. They were here for him. The lead man smirked. It's been a long time, soldier. The room turned cold. Marcus stumbled back, confused, while Elias's hands curled into fists again. But this time, it wasn't a fight for the ring. And as the strangers advanced, Elias whispered just loud enough for Marcus to hear. You've brought them to me. Darkness fell in the gym. The night the gym should have been quiet, it trembled instead. The echoes of heavy bags being struck had faded, the chatter of students gone, yet the air hummed with something restless. Marcus Reed stood in the shadows of the second floor, peering down into the training hall. He wasn't supposed to be there. No one was. But his instincts had dragged him, whispering that tonight, answers would arrive. The door creaked open below. Elias Kane walked in, shoulders broad beneath a faded jacket, his pace unhurried as if he owned silence itself. He didn't flick the lights. He didn't need them. He moved toward the far wall where the dog tags gleamed faintly, their metal catching what little light seeped through the skylight. Marcus wanted to call out, but another sound sliced through the stillness, a second door opening. 5 figures entered. Not students. Not trainers. Men in dark coats, boots hitting the mat without hesitation. And behind them, the one Marcus had begun to fear by name alone, Victor Hale. His presence didn't fill the room with noise but with gravity. Cold, unrelenting gravity. Elias, Victor's voice carried like steel dragged across stone. I told you the world wouldn't let you hide. You should have stayed gone. Elias didn't turn. His hand hovered over the dog tags, fingers brushing the metal. For a moment Marcus thought he might ignore them entirely. But then Elias's voice, calm and flat, broke the air. I stayed gone for them, not for me. Victor's smirk was thin, cruel. He gestured, and the enforcers spread out, circling. Then let's remind them what you really are. The first enforcer lunged. Elias moved faster than Marcus's eyes could track. A shift, a pivot, the man collapsed under a crushing elbow. Another rushed in, and Elias caught him mid-strike, twisting, sending him crashing against the cage wall. It wasn't a fight, it was a demonstration. Every motion was efficient, final. But for each man that fell, two more closed in, the air filling with grunts, crashes, the thud of flesh on mats. Marcus gripped the railing, heart hammering. He wanted to help, but what could he do against men like these? Down below, Elias fought like a man trying not to, every strike held back just enough, as if some invisible leash restrained him from unleashing the full storm. Victor watched with arms crossed, lips curled in satisfaction. "Still carrying your ghosts," he said. "Still refusing to finish what you start." Elias didn't answer. But his silence was thunder. The fight raged, bodies scattering across the mat, sweat and blood streaking the floor. Elias moved through them like a shadow, but even he began to slow. One man clipped him across the jaw. Another pinned his arm until Elias broke free with a snap that echoed through the hall. Marcus winced. The violence was no longer contained, it was seeping, raw and uncontrolled. And then Victor stepped forward. He unbuttoned his coat, set it neatly on a bench, and rolled his cuffs. "Enough reminders," he said softly. "Let's finish this." The room seemed to shrink. The enforcers backed away, bruised, battered, but obedient. Elias turned, finally facing him. For the first time that night, his stillness cracked. His chest rose heavier, his fists clenched. The dog tags above the door gleamed as if waiting. Victor approached, eyes burning. "You can't run from what we did, Elias. You can't bury it under silence. You're not a hero. You're a weapon. And weapons are meant to be used." The word struck deeper than any blow. Elias's jaw tightened. His body shifted into stance, the room trembling with the weight of the inevitable. Marcus leaned forward, whispering to himself. "Don't do it, don't." But there was no stopping it. Elias and Victor collided. The first strike cracked like thunder, Victor's fist meeting Elias's forearm, power rippling through the mats. They moved with the memory of men who'd fought wars together, each anticipating, countering, punishing. Victor wasn't like the enforcers. He was sharper, crueler, his strikes designed to break not bruise. Elias absorbed the blows, countered with precision, but the toll was mounting. Every clash pulled the past further into the present, every strike writing a history no one wanted to read again. Victor drove Elias back toward the wall, pinning him with a brutal knee. "You think they'll see you as anything but what I tell them you are," he hissed. "You think the truth matters?" Elias's eyes, steady even under pressure, flicked toward the dog tags. The faintest ghost of a smile touched his lips. "It's not about what they see. It's about what I leave." He surged, breaking free, slamming Victor to the ground with a roar that shook Marcus's bones. The enforcers moved, but Elias's glare froze them. He wasn't holding back anymore. He stood over Victor, chest heaving, fists ready. For the first time, Marcus saw it, the soldier buried beneath the silence. And it terrified him. But Victor laughed, blood on his teeth. "There it is," he rasped. "The real you." Elias's fist hovered. His body trembled. The room held its breath. And then, he dropped his hand. Turned. Walked away. Victor's laughter followed him like poison. "You'll never escape, Elias. Never." Marcus couldn't breathe. He didn't know if Elias had won or lost, only that something had changed forever. The enforcers helped Victor to his feet, and together they vanished into the night, leaving the gym wrecked, the mat stained, the silence screaming. Elias stood alone beneath the dog tags. His shoulders sagged, his eyes shadowed. Marcus descended the stairs slowly, the weight of what he'd witnessed pressing down on him. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but only one escaped. "Why didn't you finish it?" Elias didn't look at him. His voice was low, almost broken. "Because I'm done being their weapon." He walked out into the night, leaving Marcus staring at the faint glint above the door. The dog tags swayed slightly, as if stirred by a wind no one could feel. And the gym, once a place of pride, now carried a scar.